Hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Bonnie. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm the poetry event coordinator here at Brookline Booksmith. Today, it is my pleasure to host 4 incredible poets, Deborah Leipziger, Donna Spruijt-Metz, Ron Slate, and Ruth Chad for our Third Thursday's poetry series. Before I do introductions, I do have a few housekeeping notes. Firstly, copies of the poets' books will be available for sale at the back counter over there. I encourage you to support their work in whatever way you can, whether that means buying a book, following their work online, saying nice things to them while they're here at the store, and of course, being here for this event and supporting this reading is a huge way to show your love and care, so thank you for being here. Secondly, please keep your phones off or on silent while our poets are reading. Please also know that the event is being live streamed from this iPad right here. Hello, YouTube. Our audience should not be visible to our live stream viewers, but if you don't want to be live on YouTube, just don't walk right in front of it and you will be golden. And finally, we will have a Q&A at the end of the event, followed by a signing. So hold your questions and books until the end, but definitely have them ready to go. This event, as I mentioned, is part of a monthly reading series here at Brookline Booksmith called Third Thursday's Poetry. We won't have a December reading due to the holiday season. It gets a little busy here around December, but we will be back in 2026, so keep an eye out on our website if you are interested in more poetry. Housekeeping out of the way, now for introductions. Ruth Chad is a psychologist who lives and works in Boston. Her poems have appeared in Les Poésies de Montréal, my French is not very good, apologies, Ibbotson Street, Lily Poetry Review, Writing in a Woman's Voice, and many other literary magazines. Her chapbook in 2017, The Sound of Angels, was published by Servina Barba Press, and her latest book, In the Absence of Birds, was also published by Servina Barba Press in 2024. She was nominated for Pushcart Prize in 2021. Thank you, Ruth, so much for being here. And Ron Slate edits and publishes the online literary journal On the Seawall from his home in Aquinnah on Martha's Vineyard. His collections of poetry include The Great Wave and The Incentive of the Maggot, chosen by Robert Pinsky for the Bakewist Poetry Prize, and winner of the Larry Levi's Reading Prize from Virginia Commonwealth University. His most recent collection of poems is Joyride, which came out in 2023. He's a board member of the Massachusetts Foundation for the Humanities and a member of the National Book Critics Circle, and he was a judge for the 2019 PEN American Translation Prize. Thank you, Ron, so much for joining us this evening. Yes. Donna Spruijt-Metz is the author of To Phrase a Prayer for Peace and General Release from the Beginning of the World. She's an emeritus professor, McDowell Fellow, Rabbinical School dropout, and former classical flutist. Quite a resume. Her collective book, And Scuttle My Balloon, she's the author of a collaborative book, And Scuttle My Balloon, with Flower Tomroy, and her translation from the Dutch of Lucas Hirsch's Wu Wei Eats and Eggs are both forthcoming in 2025. Oh, that's right, I guess we are at the end of forthcome. They have forthcome. And her poems appear. Her poems appear in Poem a Day, Alaska Quarterly Review, American Poetry Review, and elsewhere. Thank you, Donna, so much for being here. And Deborah Leipziger is an author, poet, and advisor on sustainability. She's the author of several books on human rights and sustainability. Born in Brazil, her poems have been published in 10 countries in magazines like Salamander, Revista Cardinal, the Bombay Literary Magazine, and Inkwell. Her poetry collection, Story and Bone, was published by Lily Poetry Review Books. She's the founder of the Lexicon of Change, a guide to social and environmental transformation. The recipient of grants from the Massachusetts Cultural Council, she's been on writing residencies at the T.S. Eliot House, among many other honors. She's read with us at the store before, and it's lovely to welcome her back. Thank you so much, Deborah, for being here. Folks, this is a wonderful collection of poets, and they're going to share some really beautiful poetry with us tonight. I'm so excited to hear them read. Everyone, please give them a warm welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'd like to start with a poem. It really is.
You have to actually use the microphone.
Oh, I do? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. I'm going to start, well, it's in the way of the words. I'm going to start with a poem that's a poem about climate change called Shadow Life. To live after the river spill, drought cratering earth, after crows have fallen to stillness, silence after spinning wings, after stars have plunged from blue light, blackened holes in the earth, vitreous sky opaque, hanging eternally above it all. Above it all, hanging eternally, opaque, vitreous sky. In the earth, blackened holes from blue light after stars have plunged. After spinning wings, silence to stillness after crows have fallen. Cratering earth, drought after the river spill to live. This poem is a 3-poem cycle called Day by Day. Cosmos 2553 circles the earth, spins in the graveyard orbit, testing newly developed onboard instruments and systems against radiation. The nuclear option creeping closer and closer. What will we say? We can't say that we didn't know. Inside this beach plum flower, a bumblebee thrums, the blossom tender walls. Black stripes on her back, yellow dust misting the air. The way she floats and hovers. Thirsting, yearning, we seek together in this summer green, together in this radiance, our journey urgent, so much rose, so much promise. Is it too late to scale the moon, hold the night like a black earth, dance to Ray Charles in the kitchen, eat the seed within the seed, off the burning bush with the stems on, eat wild strawberries that burst into stars. This poem I wrote for my daughter before one of the many times she moved and came home, but this time she was moving. The painting you did of the cobalt sea just before you moved away, how you allowed the fence to fall down gently around the dunes, bent it like the body of an old woman, allowed the wood to splinter where storms had frayed the slats and the wire between them, mangled in the violet hues, reflected off the purple gazebo, tall grasses, pale, pliant, waving in salt breeze. You captured my longing to stop there at the edge of the ocean and not take another step, leaving our long, late shadows on the alabaster sand. This is a poem I wrote when traveling in Colombia, 2017. Omar says there were always bullets. In Salento, bloated villager bodies floated on the back of the dark, thick river, skin unfolding, molting, shedding its color. Tattoos of their lives. On Sunday mornings, the priest dragged his black robes through dust out of the white church, blessed the souls deposited like silt along the riverbanks. Do not worry, he said, God will protect you. In Salento's torrid heat, I see the killing everywhere. Tin roofs roast in searing sun, black waxy vines creep along the walls of hot houses, bougainvillea, fuchsia puffs, dried blood. This is the poem, eponymous poem, In the Absence of Birds, the name of my book. written in Bryce Canyon after reading an article in the New York Times, A Danger Always. We learned that 30% of the birds in North America have now disappeared. So, in the absence of birds, there's an unnatural quiet between the bleached stones. White light leaks into the cracks, not even a scrabble of weightless claws on the sandstone cliffs. Clouds empty of beak and wing, feather and claw, only shadows, apparitions, dying in fluid flight, blown by the wind, carried up and over the world the birds have betrayed. Silence in the forest of pinyon and fir, mourning on the mountain. I wrote this poem very recently for a very dear friend who died about 8 months ago. And I think of him every day. If I could only tell you, for Joe. At dawn, when I woke to a blue-black sky, the darkness was hard, the world getting meaner. I would have told you how the wind was creeping into the cracks between glass and wood, how everything was creaking. You would have understood. I would have told you that I was sinking in the tempest-tossed sea of a blue-black sky, and told you of Bill Charlop's lyric piano at my writing desk, notes soaring, the sigh of the black keys, and my tears. You would have understood. This is a poem for my husband called Winter Dawn. I remember a time when we were without experience, when we knew the pace of each other's heartbeat, the way we know the smell of wet earth and the whistling of wind through the eaves of this old wooden house, before we were embedded, watching each other for signs. I want only to lie beside you while thin white clouds drift across the sun. Each year the snow will cover the splintered porch rails, a dried oak leaf or a shred of brown grass hanging on. What do we really know? How can we assume? And this speaks for itself. It's a timely poem, even though I wrote it in the first Trump administration. Humanity legally challenged. This was from a New York Times article. Again, I said it was dangerous. It was about a woman named Teresa Todd, who was an elected official, a government lawyer, who was a single mother in the desert border region of Big Bend National Park, who stopped to help some Central American migrants and was arrested. She stopped to give them warmth, water, to dispel fear. They are just kids. Along the blacktop, cactus grows tall, erect, dagger spines, border dogs, guards. She said they were lost. She went to be their eyes, to shield, to guide. She stopped so they could rest. Arid soil in drought, water so low, dripping slow. She stopped to wipe away the dust on their eyelids, the dust in their dry mouths. She stopped to heal. White dust covers the windows of a cruiser. Taken in cuffs like wraiths, they disappeared into the cold desert night. This poem, another climate poem, this simple plum, Prunus domestica. In my hands, the goddess of plums, peeled taut, pulled tight as a drum, purple of dusk's dome, peeling back the cover on crimson flesh, summer's shameless striptease. Loosening fibers, binding pulp to skin, sweet sap running down my chin. This simple plum has come from summer dust, from humble hands. I hold its succulence, offering of the sun, of the rain, as if the air were not thinning, as if the rivers were not flooding, and we could be here forever with the plum tree, delivering fruit to the barrel. This poem simply called Ancient Song. Shtetl, steerage, shock, symphony of tongues. My ancestors' lyrics covering my nakedness. On the edge of knowing, where is the moon in fog? A poem I wrote when my daughter was pregnant and finished when she delivered her baby, called Diptych. This embryo becoming, floating, embraced, as the closely wrapped bud in filament, diaphanous, the fetus coming into its singularity, his need, your longing. A cry, new life, you listen closely, as I listen to your first voice, my body shivering, your tiny body, your hunger, a new song echoing, your need, my longing. This is a poem I wrote for my mother after she died, on Rio Grande Beach after my mother's death. It was my effort at a villanelle. My shadow and my mother's merged on shimmering sand. We are tilting into the light. Driftwood petrified, gleaming white, a deposit of milk, ibis circling. My shadow and my mother's merged. My voice in the wind, I can speak but she can't hear, on shimmering sand. Crimson-lipped leaves of a sea grape open into grimy morning. We are tilting into the light. I am searching her glow in the sheen of every iridescent shell. My voice in the wind, sea stars dead, yet the flesh seems so live. My shadow and my mother's merged. We are tilting into the light. And I will read this poem, simple poem just called Love Poem. I'm sure there are 5 billion of them in the world, but it's my offering. I wish I could have you this way just for a moment. Quiet evening, our hands entwined, skin touching skin. Under the twilight sky full of swallows, their slim pointed wings strobing the violet light over us into a fugue. And I'll close with a poem that I hope is for all of us. I gather together the last flowers of autumn, losing their flames of scarlet and gold. I will need them when the wind creeps into corners, seeps through the edges of the window panes. I gather the last white daisies shedding their yellow hearts as the cages of milkweed open their gates to release their seeds clothed in white silk. All this I will need when the light is low, when winter gnaws at my knees. The hours will unspool, darkness will knock on my door, tap me on the back. So I roam through the field, warm sun on my shoulders, pretending this day will never end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruth Chad. That was beautiful. And a huge thank you to Brookline Booksmith. It's such a joy to be back here. One of the best bookstores. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Bonnie, and thank you to the Booksmith. It's such a joy to read with these wonderful poets. We've been planning this for, I think, over a year. So wonderful to be together, and thank you to all of you for being here. I'm going to start with a poem that I have in this new anthology, which I really recommend, called The Nature of Our Times. And it's a beautiful collection of poems and sponsored by Poets for Science. So wonderful, wonderful collection. It's just come out, and we really need poetry right now. And my poem in the collection is called How to Heal. You taught me that bees make a kind of resin, propolis, a glue to repair their hive, From the buds of poplar and cone-bearing trees, they recreate their home. You taught me how propolis can heal, how the word comes from before and city, as though a hive is a city, as though we can make our world anew, create our own medicine from gathering what we have around us. Thank you. And I'm going to share some poems from Story and Bone. This is a collection of love poems, and I'm going to start with a love poem for my partner, Andy Hoffman, who's here. And this is called You as a Forest, and it was written, inspired by the Museum of Fine Arts exhibit of Cecilia Vicuña, and the prompt was to write about a loved one as a forest. You as a forest. I listen to the shelter of you, the sweeping canopy cradling the day and night of me. The moon rising in your branches, the stars falling into the sweep of your hair. I see the feet of your forest, the fingers, the limbs, the concave and convex of you, the light that falls around us. I smell your maple, fern, ivy, the light, serpentine, falling through the rings of redwoods. And I'm going to read the first poem in the collection, which is called Sugaring, and I think of it as a little bit of a memoir. And it's after the Sudanese-American poet Safiya Ehiyo. Sugaring. I was made of almonds and sugar, of giving and receiving, of coastlines dug deep with departure, of boats and boundaries seeking refuge. For my nonna, all desserts began with recreating home in a latticework of marzipan. I was born under dictatorship, under the light of the Southern Cross, dissolving into coconut and clove, tangled in the umbilical cord. My mother told me no one would ever love me like she did. Now I know she was right and wrong. My daughters, born of gingerbread, under a coup divorce, hold the light, the dark of my countries. And this next poem is called What is Home? And it was inspired by an exhibit at the ICA called When Home Won't Let You Stay. And it has a line from the exhibit towards the end. What is home? A house made of kites and orchids bleeding is home. Language and story, color is home. Home is story, memory, and the bones I carry. A library where books bleed into each other. Green valleys, cobalt feathers, golden letters on their spines. I want to let the stories pour into me. I did not know that everything would be taken away. Only later did I learn that my grandparents sewed gems into the hems of their clothing for each border crossing. 2S. Draw me a map of your body, your tender places of longing. Guide me through your Atacama desert. Take me through the disbelief, the fingerprints that caused you pain. Guide me through the caves, into the canyons. Let us enter the caldera and traverse this newly created earth. Read Island Cities. Silence between us, eloquent and fluid, a river between two cities. The night washes amber over our cities. Over the hollow we venture from petrified cities. Story and bone lost through forgotten cities. How many stars, my giver of stars, between our cities? The jasmine scent quivers inside our cities. Miles and minds call us in the path between our cities. I want to share some poems from my new collection, which is coming out next year and is called Tell Me. And this first poem, Hunger Turns Me Home, was commissioned for an anthology about this region, Cape Cod, the Gulf of Maine, from Cape Cod through this area. And it's about the monarch and the milkweed. Hunger turns me home. I am from my journey, from my leaving and arriving, from my search for you. I am from my journey towards this new home, following milkweed, a place to lay my eggs. My journey is my home. My life has led me here to this promontory of hope, of beginning and ending, of leave-taking and arrival, of possibility, of transmission, of wind which tore my wings. I am from my journey. My home is my journey. And this new collection has a number of environmental poems. And some of you know that I'm working on a lexicon of change, which has vocabulary that we need for our social and ecological transformation. And part of that is learning new words. And I believe these words really change us. And one of the words that you'll find in the lexicon is a very tragic word, the word endling. And an endling is the last of its kind or species. God of beginnings, God of endlings. Somewhere in the forest by the Iampe River, perhaps today, the last two Esmeralda wood stars court and create offspring. God of nests, protect them. Purple body, ruby throat, emerald feathers, I hear your wing beats. In Brazil, you are beija-flor, kissing flowers to suck nectar for hovering. A glittering, a bouquet, a shimmer, a tune, a charm of hummingbirds. God of hummingbirds, watch over them. When the last hummingbird is gone, what will become of the God of hummingbirds? And this next poem is a cento, and some of you will know that a cento is a poem based on lines from another work. And this cento is based on lines from the novel Liberty, beautiful novel by Caitlin Greenidge. Cento for my daughters. I hope that I have made you brave, you in the world responding to me, the song I made. A daughter is a poem. You in the world responding to me, a daughter is a psalm. Kind, but not too kind, the song I made. A daughter is a psalm. What freeborn thing can bear to be loved as much as that? Write something for me. What freeborn thing, you in the world, a daughter is a poem. There is bravery in being a mother. You in the world responding to me. Being a mother means being someone's God, if only briefly. Kind, but not too kind. A daughter is a poem. Being a mother means being someone's God, if only briefly. And you cannot understand what I have given you, all I have given you, to prepare you to fight. And you cannot understand what I gave you, you in the world responding to me. I hope that I have made you brave. And this last poem is the title poem of the collection, Tell Me. Tell me, what are you most afraid of? Tell me, and I will give you shade. Yes, I know of the many ways to die. Heat, thirst, flood, lightning. Why fear growing old? I have witnessed your life. There are so many ways to live. Remember, you grow rich in many currencies: light, generosity, energy, kindness. Protect me, and I will provide cover, connected as we are by need and nearness. I will cover the frozen ground with my leaves and weave my branches of color over your darkness. Come, rest with me.
Donna and Ruth, it's a privilege to share this mic with you. And Bonnie, thank you very much for opening the space up to our community. I have 4 poems for you. It's been 20 years since I've read here at the store. It's so much bigger. It's beautiful. I've changed, and you've changed. I can see that you have. Tbilisi is the capital of the Republic of Georgia. Yes, how is that? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you see me? Tbilisi is the capital of the Republic of Georgia, and my maternal grandmother was born there in 1904. And Baku is the capital of Azerbaijan. Tbilisi, Baku. Our plan. A visit to the cities of our grandmothers. Tbilisi for me, Baku for Hamid. The voice of a Turkish pilot woke me from a dream of a woman falling into a ditch as we walked along together. June the 5th, the thermal springs beneath Tbilisi fed the persimmon trees in the hotel courtyard. In the street, workers were felling the old plane trees while a few protesters looked on. At breakfast, Hamid would not relent until I conceded there are no great French composers. I walked to Grishashvili Street looking for my grandmother's birthplace. The building where the family's clothes-making business thrived until the Red Army shoved aside the hapless Georgian resistance. Further along, workers were tearing down Lermontov's house to make room for a mall. Other houses have been demolished. Hacked off heads of griffins and pieces of cherubs lay at my feet. I sat alone in a Kazakh restaurant, jotting the Georgian alphabet on a flyer, offering knockoff Hollywood DVDs. The waiter said, add 20% to the menu prices, then stepped outside for a smoke. The plane trees. People are allergic to them, claimed the health ministry, and the trees are infested. But privately, they said, blocking the views of the old facades is bad for tourism. The electricity died as I ate. The smell of sulfur drifted in from the bathhouse next door with the scent of fenugreek from the open market. We took the night train to Baku. I listened to Debussy on my headset. June the 10th, the natural gas beneath Baku seeping through sandstone fed the hillside fires above the city, flames as eternal as the Zoroastrian gods. Hamid's grandmother had prayed to them. Everywhere, the cloying smell of crude oil, repellent and sweet. The old town, filled with feral cats and cleansed of Armenians. Posters for a Warhol show at the ultra-modern museum. In the hotel lobby, Hamid raised his voice to a human rights watcher from Stockholm. They just threw the opposition leaders in jail, Hamid said to me. It's all about money now. You should know. You spent years in corporations. He went up to his room. In the morning, I found a note slipped under my door. I love you, but it is no longer a pleasure to be with you. I went on to Paris to visit my cousins. As a keepsake, here is this griffin's head, carried through customs as the gendarmes raced off in pursuit of a suspicious object. I guess that's something to travel over. The other three poems I have for you are new. And then if there's time, I'll read one more. I was born in Quincy, Massachusetts, and this poem is called Birth City at the Equinox. Terraces of granite rise up from the sea beneath what's new or called enduring. I've returned to speak to the bedrock. My parents lived up the street from the birthplace of a revolutionary hero. Can you catch the scent of fried clams blending with his quelled breath? A small city with a visible sky. The haves and the have-nots all have the same thing. My mother's tears are mist above the raised block where she shopped to stop weeping. Isn't that my toy dump truck hauling back dirt from the excavation? After the mayor cuts a ribbon, he says, "Be not uneasy." My mother's ghost says, "Tell that to the ribbon." In this thronging ruin of prefab panels and laminates, I endeavor to revisit the maples preparing to drop mementos on the graves of my friends. Don't call our enterprise ruinous, say the councilmen, when all you've ever done was to dump your childhood on the curb for others to lug. But by coming and going, I atone for my life, sending meager footfalls down to the granite. Birthday of my brother. Fountains splutter at City Hall. During the last dialysis, he was reading a book on the revelry at Merrymount. Equinox birthday, then months of nights longer than days. With the siren of a black and white speeding to the season's first felony, the city changes its mind and proclaims, I'm its favorite son. You all might remember when the Chinese surveillance balloon came floating over the United States. Was it a surveillance balloon? Was it a weather balloon? Sometimes things just pop up and they suggest things. So anyway, this is called Chinese surveillance balloon. An eye for my eye, swaying in the airstream above the heeling sailboats. What does the eye seek in the agitated mirror of the bay, but itself, looking exceptional, looking back? The eye, seeing I think thoughts that hide their origins, their aims, in turn thinks, at least I know my task. Inflatable face, unlidded lens, rises from how many centuries of blind to the grief of Zhang Guo, which is an old name for China. But then an alto-cumulus cloud in the shape of a ginseng root calms the eye to meditate. There was a boy in my class who worked on Saturdays behind the counter of his parents' laundry. Our fathers made a twosome on the municipal course. My mother said, all they eat is chop suey. But once, our two families had a barbecue. Between those clean sheets, I gazed out my bedroom window and saw a wavering light to the north. The balloon troubles the state because it trembles mirthfully at the sight of a drowsy airbase. Bloodshot eye, alert to vulnerability everywhere below, then smitten with it, charmed by grandmother surf casting for bass. As the boy handed the tied package to me, each avoided the eyes of the other. My math partner, elevating my grade. Great wall, great guns, great minds thinking of ways to see what others are thinking to do with their fears. Basho went for a walk along the shore and fished with a string of words to catch and release his own eyes. It's so fortunate, this habit of letting the clouds distract the gaze. As long as the eye and I watch them, we're safe. And finally, I have a poem called Heartland Anamnesis, and anamnesis is a Greek word that means the remembrance of things from a past existence. But it may be a supposed existence, not a real one, or a past life that you think you lived before this life. That's anamnesis. Heartland anamnesis, because I lived in the Midwest for 5 years. On Thursdays in the supermarket parking lot, a man sold sea fish and clams from the back of a van. The children of the Midwest wondered in their beds if the ocean ever freezes, while playful grunts from experimental pig farms kept them awake. I pretended to be destined to teach the great American texts. What did I know about the labors just outside of town? The dominant gods took clouds in the shape of fish and blew them into shapes of corn ears, clamshells into cow chips. The heartland filled with suggestion, teas of corn tassel, arousing suction of twisters to the south. A high school math teacher was discomposed by a cheerleader at the Bratwurst Festival. The glacier still loomed over those flatlands. It removed what it wanted, leaving homesteaders to devise what they couldn't find. Epic became episodic. Then it was Thursday. While I was in the market, the tornado arrived. The manager led us to a walk-in freezer while someone prayed for our souls and cars. What did I learn from the great bard who celebrates himself? I leaned and loafed. Then I heard from within the whirlwind, adjust your gait to that of the gale. I left without saying adieu, like a pilgrim on the way to someone else's ancestral land, soon to be renamed my place in the world. After the tumult, the fishman was gone. The heart isn't a hog injected with glee. The heart is a haddock rushed in from the sea.
That was fantastic. All three of you have been fantastic. Thank you for letting me read with you. Thank you all for being here. Awesome. Can you hear me? Yes. I tend to be loud. More loud. You got it. How's that? Do you love it? I like it when you're loud. Thank you so much for having us. I am going to read to you from this book, To Phrase a Prayer for Peace. And if I have time, I'll read a new poem, but I'm going to set my timer because I tend to chat. I know that comes as a surprise to you all, right? Okay. So, To Phrase a Prayer for Peace, I started writing this book on the first day of the Israel-Hamas war. And it wasn't going to be a book, but it turned out to be what it is. It's a cry-a-lot, because I couldn't stop. I wrote every day until day 115, and by that day I felt so oppressed by the media and all the lies coming from both sides and all sides that I was silenced. And so I stopped and sent it to a friend, and she sent it to you, to Wild House Press. And that's how it became a book. So I'm just going to read from this book. And this book, the first of the series, is Darkness Myth for day one of the Israel-Hamas war, before I heard the news. And it's for my friend R, whose name is Roy, but I call him R. And he comes back in the book, he's a blind poet, and he was witness to much of this poetry as it developed. Darkness Myth for day one of the Israel-Hamas war. Before I heard the news, I'm a night writer, and no matter how hard I try to bend myself into daylight, I long for the dark. But what do I know of darkness? My version of darkness is full of candlelight. This poem has a line in it from Adélia Prado, who's a Brazilian poet who I love, and I will do this, at Stolen Line, and a epigraph from Dana Leather. Day 4 of the war. Hashtag, we are toast. It's 7:57 p.m. PST, October 10th, 2023, and I have lived through this day. I weep from room to room. It is taught that prayers said in community are multicolored, while individual prayers are monochrome. We tinker. We are haphazard technicians. God is what we need, and fast. All God's welcome. Roy comes into this poem. Also, this is on day 14. It was 2 weeks. Remember, it was going to be a 2-week war. And so I thought, I can stop. You know, it's going to be over. But also, Roy had stopped answering my emails, so I thought maybe he hated the work. I don't know. So this is also for Roy. Day 14, Little Power. Hello, silent one. Are my war poems making you uncomfortable? It's only anguish. My power is of the small variety, the power of a knockoff crystal. Yet I can't stop these poems. The sun tempered today by breeze, me fed and free in a country where others are not. My child not gone to war, and the war hasn't come to her. Not yet. But oh my Lord, all the children, all of them. So I work a lot with the Psalms, and I talk to the holy, or however you think of it, nature, God, whatever. And I got really sick of all the different names. And I just want to talk face to face. And so I call the holy capital Y, capital O, capital U. That's my syntax. I've been in lots of trouble for it, and now the people use it, so there. On day 34, I ask you to teach us again, after Psalm 116. Ancient concepts, nurture, compassion, justice. Teach us again. We are perpetrators of the unforgivable. We forget. Yet even standing in this rubble, you invite us to return to peace. You say, return. You say, tears. You say, stumble. And we do. We stumble. This is the only light poem in the book, so I thought I'd give you guys a break. It doesn't end light, just fair warning, but it has some lightness. I talk about 2 poems in this poem. One of them is End of Poetry by Ada Limon, and I'll do a little of that. And the other one is You Are Who I Love by Araceli Germain. I'll do a little of that, okay. Love poem for day 39. What I want tonight is only a small thing. I want to write that poem about enough. The one that says enough of the brutal. Or the one that starts with you selling roses. Or to lie on a white damask Victorian couch, my hair coiffed elaborately, my ardent breasts draped in an amber satin dress, one elegant hand thrown across my brow, one shoe having just fallen from my delicate foot. But I don't have delicate feet. And those poems have already been written, and I can't find the courage to love tonight. This poem talks about a poem written by A. Yellis. Yes, it's a Yiddish poet. And this was taught to me by Danny Kraft. Psalm for day 42, after Psalm 116. The poet tells us this: once you took 2 heaps of letters, threw them from a mountaintop, and scattered them across all the paths of the world. We are still trying to puzzle them into words. The words you surely intended, didn't you? We just need a little grace down here right now. Maybe a hint or two on how to solve this lethal puzzle. How can I stand and be counted when it is the counting itself, the sifting into categories, the willful separation that will kill us all? Are you having fun yet? This is maybe my favorite poem in the whole collection, and it's really short. Day 75. I step away to lick wounds. If a poem is a tattoo, I am inked and scarred by these words. How am I doing? Okay, I'm going to read one more from this book. This is the title poem of the book, and also the last day that I wrote. Day 118, the proper way to phrase a prayer for peace, after Psalm 118. What I need to say is that Torah and Psalms teach about the importance of words and the words that we choose, which makes prayer sometimes really terrifying for me. Because what if I ask for the wrong thing? My words are imprecise, and you tend towards the literal. I'm listening to the noise that the hours make, waiting for my heart to soften, waiting for the ribbons that bind me to loosen. And then I might know what to ask and how to ask for it. So I'm going to read one new one. For my next really exciting collection, we'll talk about the death of my husband, which is recent. So I'm just writing sad poems. Sorry. He passed away a year, a month, and 2.5 weeks ago. But who's counting? And this is one of the poems from this impending collection, The Morning Anthem. Young widow at the kitchen window. I find myself outside of my body, watching and narrating. The young widow crosses the living room. But I'm not young, only new. These days, one plate in the sink after breakfast, one coffee mug, once over full, my shopping cart now near empty. Every morning I would ask, want an egg? And you would say sure or no. But that last morning you said, why not? So there were 2 plates in the sink when the EMT came and said the words, we can't help him. And the police after them to ascertain that I hadn't murdered you. And the mortuary after them, but they couldn't lift you, they had to call for help. And the rabbi was there, and we chanted the Shema, but you never had a chance to say the Dewey. I think I know this poem is about 1 plate in the sink, but the rest, what shall I do with the rest? Thank you.
Thank you to our poets for sharing their work with us. Everyone, if you want to please, if the 4 of you want to please come up and join our panelist table. It is our audience's time to shine. So if folks have questions, feel free to raise your hand, and our poets will answer them for you.
This is fun. This is yours. yours. I'm sorry. I'm not a freak of any sort.
Any
I want it organized.
questions from our audience? Yeah.
Well, it's not a question, just a comment of how wonderful each of your poems, your poetry was, and how different. And you learned a lot, and the humor, and this sadness, and the whole range of emotions and kind of wisdom that comes through. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Might hear the questions. Yeah, they can't hear the questions. You might want to use it.
Oh, okay. I can, I'll just repeat them into this. Do we have any other questions? Feel free to, yes, go right ahead.
Really for any of you, you write things that are so difficult. And how does the act of writing the poem, how does it change you? How does it maybe heal you?
The question was, how does the act of writing the poem change or heal the poet?
Thanks, Mike. It was so good to see you. What was the first part?
How does the act of writing the poem?
He's writing about things that
Change or heal?
Or heart.
Change or heal. For me, it's kind of like pressure builds up. At least recently with this book, and now in the wake of my husband's death, there is like, I don't have a lot of space to not write down. So I don't know if that's helpful. Does it heal me? I think so. I mean, it keeps me somewhat sane, because then I can look at it and in the act of revision, sort of figure out what it is that I'm feeling. That's what I might. I don't know. Go for it.
It's a great question, thank you. I would say for me, it's kind of contradictory, but it's both healing, but it also keeps the wound fresh in an interesting way. So I think it is healing, but it's also, every time I read it or every time I think about it, comes back. So both things are true.
Writing poetry for me is a great dopamine rush. It's very pleasurable. Raises my pulse. It makes me more awake to things around me. But I'm not really interested in telling what we call the truth in poems, because that is just dispensing true facts, or saying things like, even though they're true, we shouldn't destroy our world. It's just that in the world of those who read poetry, you have permission from everybody in advance to say something like that, and we all know it. So what I'm really interested in is how the mind works, because we don't fully understand that. They're still writing books about that, right? And we're still writing poems based on the idea that we're kind of fascinated and puzzled by how the mind thinks. That to me is what is important.
Well, for me, I would say that writing poetry is kind of transformative. When, for example, after a loss, the writing allows me to enter the world I shared with that person and come out of it as well. There's a kind of transcendence or transformation that happens in writing the poem. Similarly with, poems about issues in the world or things in the world that move me, they often start with an image. And then as they build, I would say, I agree with you, there's a dopamine rush. There's a kind of wonderful feeling about being able to create a poem out of images, feelings, an experience that's inchoate, but then becomes, in a way, a reality that I can wrap my mind around. So.
time for one or two more questions if there's anyone else. Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, I think I heard somebody say that you've been planning this for a year, and I'm just curious, what brought you together? Like, because you're such a range of voices.
Aw.
What's the community that's you?
Thank you for asking that. That's great. Well, Ruth Chad and I are part of a writing group, and so we write together. That's been true for many, many years.
15 or more years.
So it's a great joy to have writing partners and to work with Ruth. And sometimes we show up with poems that are like connected. It's really a beautiful thing. And I wanted to bring Donna Spruijt-Metz to the East Coast. This is her East Coast debut, and very exciting. So we've been planning that, and then Ron Slate, I have wanted to read with you for a long time. We have a friend in common. So one of my dearest friends is your relative, and so we kind of had this special connection for like 25 years. And so it's a great joy to have you come from the Cape. And so I thought this would be a really good pairing for us at the Booksmith. And Bonnie has done an amazing job of bringing us together. So thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. Do we have any, I think we have time for about one more question, if anyone has one. Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, I'm really curious about this question of neologisms and new words. Especially Deborah, I know you spoke about it, but it's something a lot of poets do out of need or out of want. So I'm curious for all of you what they do for you, and when do you feel the need for them?
Good question.
I'm fascinated by language, and I love learning new language, and I think in order to deal with climate change and all of the things that are happening in the world, we need poetry, we need art, and I think this is a way that we can express all of the things that we're feeling, and that's why I'm very excited about this poetry and science, because I think poetry and science are two sides of the same thing, and the scientists alone aren't able to address the kinds of issues that we are dealing with. But I do think we do need new language, and we need to understand science, and we need to have new ways of thinking, acting, and being. And as poets, we have a responsibility to think in that way and to share these new ideas.
Sure. I love a good new word, and I especially like making them myself. And when that happens most often, for me, is when I get really sick of the verbs that I know. So I sometimes like to verb a noun, which makes it, in principle, new. And if you verb a noun, then sometimes you tack it on to another thing that was once its own word. It just, because I get really frustrated with our current collection of verbs. So, you want to say anything?
I just have one very simple thing to say, which is that most of us poets, certainly I, have just an incredible love of language. Just really enjoy it for its own sake. And in writing poetry, sometimes just putting words together, finding new combinations, new colors, new ways of expressing a color, new ways of expressing an idea, a new metaphor, image is just an absolute pleasure. It's a joy.
I mean, I would say basically, I don't recall making up a word, a neologism, in the last 20 years.
Get on it, Ron.
But I think that it's the responsibility of a poet to renew language, especially since the rise of the internet. You know, the fake news and all this kind of stuff. Politicians have always damaged language or, you know, used it callously, but it's even worse now, of course. So all the more pressure on us to try to make it new.
Yeah. And also, I would say, not only renew it, but reclaim it.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I refuse to give up truth as a word. Just not that I believe there is such a thing, but it's a nice idea. I refuse to give up the words that have been misused and appropriated. And I would say other things, but I'm on stage and I'm going to be polite.
Well, that leaves us at our time, but that is a really powerful note to end on, the beauty and the strength of language and the role of the poet to protect and move language forward. What a lovely final thought. So thank you to our audience for your questions, for being here. It's lovely to have you. And of course, thank you to our poets, Ruth, Donna, Ron, Deborah. It's so wonderful to have you here. Everyone, let's give them one more round of applause. Just a few housekeeping things. If you're interested in any of these 4 books, they're available for sale at the back counter over there. You can get them signed by our poets right at this table. And otherwise, have a great rest of your night. Thanks again for being here.
Yeah, let's stay here for a sign.
Hey.